my name is Jeanette, and I want to thank you for joining me on the channel Jane Reads. So today I'm going to share with you my top 15 books for 2024. Now these are all first-time reads. Overall, in 2024, I gave 26 books 5 stars. Some of those were the first time reading them, and some of them were rereads. And so I've narrowed it down to 15 for first-time reads. Doesn't mean the other 11 were all rereads, because that's not the truth. There is one book in this list that was only 4 stars for me. However, because it's part of a series, I had to include it, and I will explain that when I get closer to it. Okay, so I've sorted them by genres, kind of leading into each other. You'll see my least favorite genre to what has become a favorite genre. When I look at this pile, it's like, wow. Spoiler alert, romantic suspense is not my biggest genre in this pile. Book number 1 is Possibly Penelope by Pepper Basham. This is contemporary romance. It is book number 2 in the Skymar series. So we are following Penelope, who we met in book 1. And she has gone off to the island of Skymar to work at a theater and help them with their marketing and kind of rebuild themselves. She meets 2 brothers there. It is a family-run theater, and it becomes kind of a little bit of a possible love triangle that does not last for very long, thankfully. And she connects with one of them more than the other. But there's also Penelope is a lover of theater and musicals, which totally makes sense with what she's doing. And there is a lot of references to Julie Andrews, especially in this book, and I just loved it. And there is a lot of email and text communication between Izzy and Luke and Penelope, who we really saw that relationship kind of build up in book number 1, and then it carries over into this book. I absolutely loved this book. It was just so fun. This was definitely my favorite of the series. Another contemporary romance, and this is on my Kindle, so I've written down little cheat sheets for myself. And so that is Big Apple Atonement by Carolyn Miller. This is book number 5 of the original 6 hockey series, and as the name suggests, it is set in New York. We are following Emma and her best friend Lacey, who run a children's home, Emma is the interim director of the children's home, and Lacey works at the children's home. Lacey is married to the captain of the New York Rangers, and TJ gets transferred to the New York Rangers. And TJ kind of has a bad reputation and has to do community service at this group home to kind of build up some of his reputation. And we just watch the friendship develop. Really, it starts as enemies and then it develops a little bit more. And I loved Emma. And I was just really rooting for her and really invested in what was going on at the children's home. And then we do see TJ find faith in God and learn to trust God, and kind of the relationship grow there faith-wise through the witness of Lacey and Tim, her husband. And I really enjoyed this story. Now, going into romantic suspense, I have book 1 and book 2 of the Defend and Protect series by Lynn H. Blackburn. So book 1 is Unknown Threat, and book 2 is Malicious Intent. There is a 3rd book in the series, but it was not as good as these ones, in my personal opinion. So this follows Secret Service agents who work out of the office in Raleigh, North Carolina. And in book 1, agents from that office are being killed. And so they're trying to figure out what is going on and stop before they get injured or killed, worse. And then we do watch a relationship develop between 2 characters, and I really, really enjoyed this one. This was definitely my favorite of the series, but this one was very close behind. So in this one, we're following another one of the Secret Service agents who we met in book 1. And This time he reconnects with his childhood best friend, male character, connects with a female. And there was a possibility of a romance back when they were younger, but then stuff happened, and now, do they have a second chance? Is it going to happen this time? And then with the case-wise, the reason they connect in the first place, I really, really enjoyed it, and Gil is such a sweet guy. I really liked this one, and it was nice to see the characters we'd met in this book again, along with her characters from the Dive Team Investigation series, which is the series before this one. So I highly recommend this series. Another romantic suspense is Secondary Target by Angela Carlisle. This is book number 1 of the Secrets of Kincaid series. This is the only book that she has out right now. Book 2 is coming out later this year. I want to say July. But this one is set in Kentucky. Yes. So Karina and her father have built a life in Kentucky after her mother and brother were killed. And so a number of years ago, now we pick up. And it turns out that Karina's father has been keeping some secrets from her. And it has put her life in danger. Her best friends from when she was in high school, she still connects with the female who is... I can't think of it. So it's Bryce and his sister. I can't think what the sister's name is. And so the three of them were really good friends in high school. Bryce has moved away, and so it's only the girl, the sister. So Karina and the sister are still really good friends, and Bryce comes back to town. And the way the two of them put their lives on hold to help Karina get through and deal with what's going on. I loved watching the friendship develop and romance develop along the way. There is a twist in this one where I had no idea who the villain was. I thought it was all figured out, and then the twist happens and it was like, wait, what? Like, I was totally with Karina when she was like, no way, what? Like, yeah, I cannot wait to read book 2 of the series, and I really hope we're following some of the characters that we've already met. Okay, now we're going historical suspense, and this is The Gold Digger by Liz Tolsma. So this one is based on true events. It is a fictional retelling of true events that have happened, and is part of the True Colors series, and the True Colors says it is fiction based on strange but true history. A widow's ad for a husband leads to mysterious disappearances. So we are following the sister of the widow and somebody who comes to town trying to figure out what happened to his brother. And the last place the brother was seen was on the widow's farm. What is going on? And we watch the relationship develop between the sister and the stranger that arrives in town. And they're trying to piece together things, and it is disturbing of what's happening, but I was so invested. So invested. I cannot wait to read more by this author. This was my first book by her, and I definitely will be picking up more. Okay, now that we're on historical, let's go with my very first read of the year. Well, my very first historical read of the year that made a favorite, and that is Yours Truly, Thomas by Rachel Fordham. This one is Rachel Fordham's second book, I'm pretty sure. I don't think this is her debut. There is not a list of books in there, but I'm pretty sure The Hope of Azure Springs comes before this one, but I could be wrong. Doesn't really matter. So this one we are following Penny, who works for the Dead Letter Office in Washington, D.C. She comes across a letter on her desk that they're trying to find either the recipient or return to the sender. And she ends up communicating with the sender. And it's such a sweet, sweet romance. I just loved it. And Penny ends up traveling to try to return this letter. They end up meeting. Things just keep things just develop, and it was just so sweet. I loved this one. Okay, then we have Beyond Ivy Walls, also by Rachel Fordham. This is her newest release that came out in August, I want to say. And we are following Otis, I think is his name, who has left home due to some sort of deformity and has kind of been in hiding for years. He returns home because his father has passed away and he needs to deal with the estate now. He ends up meeting a female that I can't think of her name. A disadvantage to not having it physically formed to look at the back for the names. And so she has come to town working in a factory to try to raise money to help her family back home. Trying to save money, she is living out of this old abandoned building that just happens to be on the property of Otis's family. And the two connect, and there is a housekeeper and a butler that kind of prod a relationship a little bit, I want to say. Kind of push for them to be friendly to each other and assist each other and, to communicate, talk, things like that. It is such a sweet story. And the way that the girl character really doesn't get offended by Otis and how he responds to her at times, or how he looks, or how she is, maybe Sadie is her name? I don't know. Doesn't really matter so much. And so they're just building a friendship up, and she is so supportive of him and kind of brings him out from hiding and gets him to open up. Really, really enjoy this story. Okay, so another historical fiction is A Brilliant Night of Stars and Ice by Rebecca Connolly. This is a fictional retelling of the sinking of the Titanic, and in particularly the rescue efforts of the Carpathia to get to the Titanic and rescue as many passengers as they could and their journey back to North America, to New York, and how many they actually rescued. And this story is told from the perspective of the captain of the Carpathia ship and a passenger on the Titanic. And so every other chapter rotates between the captain's perspective and the passenger's perspective. And in between, there are journal entries or newspaper articles from passengers on the Carpathia, what they saw and experienced, or newspaper articles reporting what has happened. And the very end of the book, with the author's note, she goes through and says how much is true, what she found in the research and what she fictionalized, and then goes on to give more details about the captain and kind of what happened after this event of the rescue of the, him in charge of the Carpathia, the rescue, and kind of what was next in his life. It was so well done and just made me feel like I was right there at times, and to see the other side, because you only ever hear about the Titanic. Majority of the time you hear about the Titanic itself, not what happened after. Okay, so the next book is one that I read in December, and it's very fresh in my mind. It was near the end of December I read it, and I just loved it. Again, it was the first book I've ever read by this author, and I will definitely be picking up more by them. And that book is Walking on Hidden Wings by Rachel Scott McDaniel. This is set in New York State in 1920s, and Geneva comes from a family of wealth. Her father has arranged a marriage for her, and so we see that arrangement happening and them first get together. Then, just a few months later, her husband is killed, and she goes undercover to try to figure out what led to his death. Was it an accident, or was there foul play at work? while she is undercover, she starts discovering things, and it was just like, what? Like, I was so hooked to this book. I loved it. And for the first probably good half of the book, we are switching between what is happening now with her undercover and what she's finding out, and then going back to 5-6 months previous of the relationship building up to them becoming husband and wife. And I was so hooked to this story. So hooked to it. Every chapter ends with some sort of trivia or like kind of piece of news dropped or a reveal happening that it was like, okay, what? Wait, what? Now I have to keep reading. I did not want to put this book down. I was so addicted to it. And the character of Geneva and the strength of her and kind of just the way she grows and you see things develop for her. There's a relationship that happens that just, I was awed. Like, I just loved it. I do not want to say any more because it will be spoilers, but it's a great story. I highly recommend this one. Okay, so we're staying in historical fiction, and I have books 1 and book 2 of a series again, and this is the Texas Ever After series by Karen Witemeyer. Book number 1 is Book number 1 is Fairest of Heart, and book number 2 is If the Boot Fits. So this is a fairy tale retelling stories set in Texas in the 1800s, I want to say. 1892. So almost 1900. Oh, I've ever seen that one. Book number 2 is set in 1889, and this one is set in 1892. That's surprising that it went backwards, which is fine. They are not connected to each other at all, so they could easily be read as standalones, either one. They just both have the fairy tale retelling. The Fairest of Heart is a Snow White retelling, so we have 7 kind of grandfather figures taking place for Penelope. Oh, good for me. And so Penelope has got herself into a situation, and she meets these 7 grandfathers, and it's such a fun story. And I loved the men. I really love the men. And then we have If the Boot Fits, which is a Cinderella retelling. And the guy is determined that the girl's father has done him and his family wrong, and he's trying to find evidence of it. They realize that he's in the house digging through the office. He tries to escape. He ends up losing his boot. So it's a retake, right? A reverse of Cinderella. And then the female, what is her name? Samantha is trying to find the owner of the boot. And the two end up connecting and trying to figure out what is going on. I really was invested in the story. And there is a kind of I don't want to say twist that happens, but kind of a reveal that happens, and the way that her father reacts to the knowledge that he has just found out. I loved it. I loved it. He did not react the way you would have expected, and I just really, really enjoyed it. Very, very enjoyable. So the last 3 books I'm going to mention are all part of the same series, but I cannot talk about books 2 and book 3 without talking about book number 1. Because you need to read this series in order to really fully connect with the characters in the series and get to know the backstory. The series I'm talking about is Sunrise in Normandy by Sarah Sundin. So book 1 is The Sea Before Us, book 2 is The Sky Above Us, and book 3 is The Land Beneath Us. So in this one, we are following 3 brothers. Very early on in book number 1, we learn about these 3 brothers, and we see an event that happens that really fractures the relationship and changes things for them. Then it picks up a number of years later. Now it's the start of World War II, or in the midst of World War II, and each of the brothers is off serving in a different division for the US military. And the brothers don't know each other, are in different service units. And so we're watching that we're hoping for the relationship to be restored between these brothers. Each story focuses on one of the brothers and what they're going through, their events in the division that they are serving in, but it also carries over between the main storyline of the fractured relationship of the three brothers. Book number 1 is not my favorite of the series, but it really introduces you to the family. And with that first chapter where everything is kind of revealed of what's going on, I was like, what is going to happen? And then as it builds up more, you get more connected with one of the brothers more than the other. I think that's very normal, is you always have a favorite character, right? And so as the series goes on, I get to spend more and more time with my favorite character because all three brothers are mentioned in all 3 books at different times. So book number 1 he is in the Royal Naval Service, and it's leading up to D-Day. In book number 2, he is a pilot, and book number 3, he is a ranger. And there are different aspects in each book of what they're going on. They are not a repeat of the previous because they're all in different service things. It's highlighting different parts of the naval, or the army. Not the army, of the US military, I guess. And so, but there's also letters. In every single book, there are letters. I love it when there are letters in the story. And I will tell you, book number 3 is definitely my favorite. Definitely my favorite characters throughout them all. But in this one, we also get to see the characters from this one and the characters from this one make appearances. And that just made it that much better. So those are my favorite reads of 2024. I hope I have encouraged you to pick up some of these books if you have not already read them. I'd love to chat in the comments below. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video today, and have a great day. Bye.